Hi, I'm Colin, and you're watching my Flosstube channel, Stitchpocalypse. This is my 10th video, which is an exciting milestone for me. I have honestly like a ton of stuff to talk about in this video. I have 3 new starts, one of which I finished. I have 4 other whips that I want to show you. I went to Midsummer Stitch, which I'll talk about a little bit. I have a couple questions from my last video that you guys had for me that I want to respond to. And then there is a book I want to talk about at the end. And so there is just like a ton of content. I'm not going to fly through it because I don't want to fly through it. But to start out, I am going to show you sort of the, I keep a pretty strict stitching journal, stitching planner. And since July is over, I'll show you what the month of July looked like. Stickers go wherever I film a Flosstube, whenever I start something, whenever I finish something, and then this big sticker here was for Midsummer Stitch, which was honestly my first, I don't want to call it a retreat, because I think it wasn't, but it was the closest I've ever done to doing like an actual retreat. As you can see, I was celebrating Christmas in July, and then over here on the other edge was sort of my mantra for the month from Addison Rae. I know how to make the hard things look really easy. I don't know if I've talked about how funny I think affirmations are, and whatever. I think affirmations are fun. I do not believe them. But I do feel like very drawn to someone saying a kind of extreme thing about the type of person they are. Like, I know how to make the hard things look really easy. And I've been thinking about it kind of in inverse to what I see, what I'm seeing more and more from like the world, and I guess Flosstube also, which is that people want to make things look really, really hard. Right? Because if the stitching looks really difficult, you can sell a $300 online class that's only available for 6 months. And so I think my goal is to make the hard things look really easy, and stitching isn't hard. I've said that before, but quite frankly, you try it. If you don't get it right, you try it again, and like eventually you'll get it, and it's not that hard. And there's so much free content out there. Do not be paying someone hundreds of dollars for a class. Anyway, this is what it looks like. And so I'll just kind of get right into it. So in July I was actually very sick for like over a week. I didn't work for I didn't go to work for like 9 days. Like, I was just kind of holed up here in my house. I probably had COVID. I was testing negative for COVID, but I certainly had all the symptoms of this like scary new strain where you feel like you've swallowed a bunch of shards of glass. But so that's one of the reasons why I've gotten so much stitching done, is because I like didn't go anywhere and I didn't do anything, and all I did was just like sit at home and watch like, for some reason, all of the Disney Star Wars TV shows, which are not very good, and then also like 40 episodes of the Gilmore Girls, which is really good, and I've never seen it before. I think I thought it was like lighter and dumber than it actually is. Anyway, so I have a lot of stitching to do. I did a lot of stitching because there was nothing else to do. But I also kind of, towards the end of it, I was feeling very like, okay, I'm stitching kind of all the same stuff. I haven't left the house. Like, I need to do something new. And so I started 2 projects, then I finished one, and I started the second in the series. And the one that I have started and finished is from Holidays by the Prairie Schooler. I plan on doing, maybe not all of them, but most of them. And so I started and finished this one. And then I also started this one down here, the Santa with the tree. It only took me like a day and a half to stitch, but also I don't know. It's small. I'm stitching it on 32 count. Yeah, I'm stitching it on 32 count light taupe Modena, which is one of the like Zweigart fabrics that's a blend. I think it's like a cotton synthetic, maybe linen blend. I don't know. I probably should have looked it up, but I didn't. And I'm doing it with my own DMC conversion. I just think that like for a lot of these small things, I don't care enough about the called for. And the Prairie Schoolers are just like very, I think that Christmas can be funnier than this. For me, what I like about Christmas is like the absurdity of it and sort of the like heightened everything, right? My favorite Christmas songs are the ones that are like kind of stupid, like Have a Cheeky Christmas, or the Hannah Diamond cover of Where Are You Christmas, or what are some of the other really good ones? I'd Like to Give You One for Christmas by, is it Hot Pants? And so for me, Christmas is like the perfect time to spend time with like people you love, get them silly presents, they get you silly presents, you eat kind of decadently. Obviously I'm not religious, so but I think the religious part of Christmas is much funnier than the religious part of all the other holidays, because like the opulence and the gold and the whatever. And so like I see stuff like this, right? And I think like that's a little too, that doesn't exist, that's not in line with the absurdity that I'm trying to bring to my Christmas celebrations. And like the food, and like the 7 fishes on Christmas Eve, and like a roast beef, I don't know. Anyway, what I'm saying is that like for all my Christmas stuff, I really like to do a conversion because I really want to like amp it up. But also I do conversions for everything now, so I don't know why I'm pretending like it's any different at Christmas. But here is what the finished product looks like of that one ornament. Yeah, I mean that like light green is much more kind of yellow than it appears on camera. And so that is my finish. I'm stitching with 2 threads, loop start method. I have really gotten into the loop start method. I know that people are like, I don't know if I like it. I like doing 1 thread. I like doing both. I like doing 3 threads too, which I'll show you in a little bit. And then this is the start I had of the second one. After I finished that ornament. Here's the back. You know I love to show my backs. And then the back of this one. I don't know about this Modena. It's a very see-through fabric, which it has the like hand feel of like a Lugana, but it's much thinner, and you get like a similar kind of puffy stitch that you get from like, I feel like my linen stitches are less puffy because like than my Lugana stitches, just because the weave is so even. But this is like very see-through, so this is called the Modena, but like, yeah, I mean, you can fully see me through it. I've never stitched anything from the, honestly, I don't have all that much to talk about with this one. I've never stitched anything from the Prairie Schooler before. It's fun, they're cute. Isaac says it looks like South Park, which is a show I never watched because my parents didn't let me watch anything on television, and then I don't know. Yeah, but Isaac says it looks like South Park. So do with that what you will. But there's not much to say about it. I'm having fun. I like to always have some sort of Christmas ornament going, and I haven't for a while, and this is my sort of current Christmas offering. But also for Christmas in July, I started Winter Sampler, designed by Sandy Orton. This is from Kooler Designs. I'll give you like a close-up. You know I love my Sandy. And so that's what it's gonna look like when it's finished. These Sandy Orton pieces are just so fun to stitch. I know in another video I talked about how much I loved Sandy Orton. And I do love Sandy Orton and how I think she's like the best cross-stitch designer in the world, right? Maybe of all time. And that the amount of detail she is able to get in such a small space is crazy to me. Is like on such a different level. Sometimes I stitch stuff that I am like, I have stitched for months. I have stitched for months and months and months. And I have still not been able to get like the level of clarity and detail that you can get from like a Sandy Orton piece with like 20 stitches. The problem is, for some people, it's not a problem for me because I kind of like it, is that there's like tons of color changes. So like you will just be threading your needle and do 3 stitches and that's it. And there's a ton of back stitching. There's all kinds of like French knots. There's specialty stitches. But I just think she is stitching. She was designing cross stitch in a way that maybe no one is now. It's definitely not like I'll just show you what I've stitched because I think. But so this is what my progress looks like. I'll pull it. And the thing is, I haven't even done any of the back stitching on this yet. And so that means that like the level of detail that's going to get into, particularly like over here, which I guess now that I'm looking at it on camera, it looks way more detailed than it does in person, and it looks really, whatever, it looks really good. But yeah, I just love Sandy Orton so much. I'm stitching this on 32 count with the 3 strands. She always calls for 3 strands, and then like she does like you do this 1 and you do this 1, 2, and most of it you do with 3. And now when I stitch a Sandy Orton piece, I'm always gonna do the 3 strands. I do have a couple things to like warn anyone about who has never stitched a Sandy Orton piece. One of which is that these are like designed to like the nth degree. And so that means like I guess you could do a color conversion, but like that sounds crazy to me. You kind of just have to stitch it how she calls for. I do always recommend doing the 3 strands on this now. I stitched a previous piece. I'm just gonna grab it for you, I guess. It's behind me on my stuff I have finished, but haven't fully finished yet. Last year, I think I finished them like a couple weeks before my first Flosstube, so you've never seen these before. I did maybe like gardener's ornaments or something. These are by her as well. And I was doing these because I was looking for something by her, but that was a little bit more simple. And so these are not very backstitch heavy, but they look like this. But the thing about these is I did these on 32 count Lugana, but I only did it with 2 strands. And you just don't get the same level of, it like loses something. I don't know what it is that it loses, but it does lose something. And also about them being designed to like the nth degree. These were charted in DMC. All of her pieces were, I think. All of the ones I've done are just like DMC and no anything else. But one of the issues is in the like 30 to 40 years since she's designed these, there have been, DMC is really consistent, but there have been some changes to some of the colors. And because her use of color is like so incredibly specific, sometimes it gets like a little bit off. So like on this, although it looks less so on camera, but in person, this like darkest color on these flowers is really purple, is like a really vibrant purple color. But like on the photos and on the chart, it looks like it's more like a purple blue. And so probably at some point DMC like wasn't able to dye their floss the exact same color, and so this is now the same number, but it just looks a little bit different. And you just kind of have to accept it. It looks fine. I'm not saying it doesn't look fine, but I think it could probably look way better. But I'm not hunting down DMC from 1985 to stitch a Sandy Orton piece. Because it was Christmas in July, I did start this, the winter sampler. I've done the section, as you can see, that's a man sort of skiing. I think it's a man. It might be a woman. I don't know. They might be non-binary. Can't. They might be like a Zers, you know? And then sort of a portion of this like village, which if you look at the chart, I did a lot of stitching on this, but it is not. So it looks like that. And I just love this. And I just love Sandy Orton. And there are 4 of these, 1 for every season. And I think like in my lifetime, it would be nice to have all 4 done. I'm stitching on a 32 count with 3 strands, which is crazy and is very tight stitching. And so I did sometimes have trouble like getting it through the holes and that kind of thing, but it does just look so good. And it gives you this like really kind of stiff, almost tapestry-like texture to it that I really like for these Sandy Orton pieces. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about these. I just like love them. I just love her so much. And I mean, I guess like sometimes I'll see like a Lola Crow piece. Like I think those big sals that she does, those like sometimes will have the level of detail that like a Sandy Orton piece has. But yeah, I still don't think it hits quite that level of like dense detail, maximalism, clear understanding of like what you can do with floss that she was able to do. And so I think it would be really interesting to try to find someone who's maybe doing more like contemporary images and colors with the same level of detail. But then I wonder, I just think about a lot of the trendy cross-stitch patterns, which we'll talk about at the end because one of the questions is about it. And just about how very easy most of them are. Like backstitching is really out right now. People really hate backstitching. Specialty stitches are like kind of a novelty that you do. But I feel like a lot of the stuff now that is like hot designers is like block stitching or kind of like, I guess, monochromatic, which is whatever. Or just kind of like simple stitching, right? You're just kind of stitching the pattern and there isn't a ton of... But then I wonder if that's only because like the subpar stuff from the past, right? The stuff that wasn't like the highest quality, just like we don't even see it anymore. Like music, right? Nobody cares about musicians from the 80s who are making shit music that was popular. Like even if it was popular, nobody cares, right? We're listening to stuff that was like good. That was someone who was like making really thoughtful. And so it'll be interesting to see what kind of charts like pop out from the now 20 years from now or 30 years from now or 40 years from now, you know? Will everyone be like, oh, I love, and then say the name of someone that neither you nor I have ever heard of who designed like 4 charts that nobody bought in their lifetime? I don't know. Much to think about. But all that to say, this is Winter Sampler. That'll probably be my thumbnail. And so actually those are like the most recent things that I've stitched. And like I think I only like it's the 3rd, right? And I think I only started Winter Sampler like a week and a half ago. And then I stitched on that for like a while, and then I stitched on the ornaments for like a day and a half each. Maybe like a day and a half and then half a day. And then I've been stitching on something else, which I'm not going to show you. But if we go back to like, I guess 4 weeks ago, I worked on, which I hadn't worked on this for maybe a couple months. I'm going to show a scary clown. I know that sometimes people are really scared of clowns. I don't find him particularly scary, but I know some of you do. But here's the clown. This was a vintage kit that I got. This is Clown Dreams by Designwork. This is a vintage kit that I got, and I started it as part of the Bring Out Your Kit Sal, which was hosted by the Thread Gremlins and Jen's Fiberweb, which was a sal that was started over a year ago. I don't know if anyone else is still, I think Elizabeth from the Thread Gremlins is still stitching on hers some, but I think she would have stitched on it whether or not there was a sal. At this point, this is like just a whip that I have, and so I don't even know if I should start talk about it like it's a sal, but I do think it's like necessary context. Yeah. And here's how my clown looks. Let me back up. I did most of the portion down here, and so recently, the part that I did a few weeks ago was his face. So I finished his face, I did his hand, I did all of the sleeve, which had not been stitched. I did like most of his pant, and then I started on this shoe over here. This is really coming together. I would really like to finish this by the end of the year. And so I'm definitely going to stitch on it this month. I will not be stitching on it in September because I'm only stitching samplers in September because it is Sampler September and I love a sampler. And also it's my birthday's in September, and so like, yeah, I'm just trying to like really love it. But this is what it looks like. I love this clown. I was gonna have plans for it in our house where the goal is to like put it somewhere where like if people come over and they like shut a door, then the clown is there and they're like a little bit scared. I haven't done any back stitching on this in a while. I've been trying to like backstitch as I go, but the problem is the portion that I'm on now, something about the way I'm stitching it is that there's not really many places I can backstitch that don't run into a place where I haven't stitched yet. And so I'm hoping the next time I work on this to like at least get some backstitching done kind of over here and like maybe on the pant. But yeah, that's Clown Dreams by Design Work. I just think he's so cute. And I did get his 5 o'clock shadow in, as you can see there. And his glove has a hole in it, so you can see like a little part of his skin popping out of the glove. His shoe also has a hole in it, and he has no socks on. And so down here, his little toe is going to be popping out here. Because I know y'all got that foot thing, and you're just desperate to see this like hobo clown's foot. I'm gonna show it one more time. I feel like I'm not showing stuff enough. I feel like I have so much to talk about, right? That I'm not giving you guys the necessary detail. Did I even tell you what I was stitching Sandy Orton, the winter sampler, on? Oh my god. I'm stitching that on 32 count flax linen by Zweigart, which I stitch. So you're gonna see so much flax today, and you see so much flax all over. This I am stitching with on the linen that was on the Aida that was included in the kit, with the flosses that were included in the kit, which are fine. It does look very good. I will say I had felt on my last Flosstube that I was really on a roll with this piece. I worked even more on ANNO 1817 by Reflet Soie, which is a reproduction sampler that's a mending sampler. I'm doing my own color conversion, which was originally Rainbow Gallery silks. And then maybe like a month and a half ago, I had hit a wall on it because the Rainbow Gallery silks are too slippery for what I'm trying to do with it. And I had kind of hit a wall and I wasn't really stitching it, and then I just decided that what was best was for me to like switch to DMCs. And it is honestly like one of the best decisions I've ever made in my stitching. I have gotten so much progress on this since I did it. And yeah, this is, do I need to get my board out? Yeah, I do. I need to get a smaller board. I should probably cut this down. I'm stitching this on 32 count smoky. I think I do this every time I show this piece. Yeah, I'm stitching this on 32 count smoky white linen, which is the lighter version. It's like a printed linen from Zweigart. It's the lighter vintage country mocha. It's like if vintage country mocha was white. And this. Oh. I have to back up. I always have such a hard time showing off this piece. Yeah, that's good. I stitched quite a lot of this border here. Almost, definitely all the flowers of this border. And then from here down of the green. This flower, this, half of this half motif. And then here. And I'll show you like close up what it looks like. So I did half of that mending section. For those of you who have not watched my other Flosstubes where I show this, this is a mending sampler. It's a way that girls were able to learn mending so they could mend their own clothes. And it's a way to like experiment with different weave patterns. The way you do it is you sew straight stitches into the fabric, and then there's a section that floats, which is this. And in the place you were mending, that's where like there would be a hole there. And so you would be covering up the hole, and then you come and actually weave either a vertical or a horizontal section through the part that's floating. So like, and it ends up looking like that. And you can do, there are different patterns, there are different weave patterns, you can do different stuff with color. I now understand how a houndstooth works from this, which is here, which if you look at this, it just makes a houndstooth. But I actually did a lot of the like cross stitch on this recently and not much of the mending. The only mending portion I did was this partial motif. I'm really happy with the colors I picked. I just like love this piece so much. It just makes me so happy. Yeah, I stitched this over here, which looks really good. And here, I'll show you the back too. I started this on my birthday last year. This was my birthday. This was my sampler September birthday start from 2024. So I'm coming up on a year of working on this piece. This is what the back looks like. And that's what the back of the section. And then that's the back of like a finished section. Yeah, but this was my birthday start last year, so I'm coming up on a year of working on this, which I am incredibly happy with like the progress that I've made on it. I think if I continue at the rate that I have been working on it, which honestly I haven't been working on it a ton, I will be able to finish it within 2 years of starting it, which is like really, for a sampler this big, is really, really good. I did squish down the motifs so that they're much closer to each other, just so that it could be like a chiller stitch. And I did take out a couple of the, not special, I wouldn't call them specialty stitches. I guess just some of the like internal borders that kind of expanded the piece quite a lot. I took them out just because I'm not having fun working on them. I'm having fun working on this, but I wasn't having fun working on them, so I'm just not doing them. But I will say of all of the things that I've worked on, this is probably the one that is the most difficult. But also like now that I'm kind of in it, now that I've done a couple of them, it is quite easy. I'm making the hard things look really easy. I cannot recommend a mending sampler enough. Everyone should try and do one. They are just so fun. And the weaving is so fun, and it makes me so angry. It kind of makes me feel like I'm playing Dark Souls. Not in like the actual, but if you've ever played the video game Dark Souls, you know how it's like really, really hard. And you just like keep trying over and over and over again to get it right. And then eventually you do get it right, and you just feel such this like crazed rush about like how amazing you are. That's how I feel about this. I get mad at this piece all the time. And then I work on it for more and more time, and then I'm like, oh, it's amazing. I'm so talented. Yeah. But that is ANNO 1817 by Reflet Soie. And I'm not going to get my board back out, but yeah. I wonder if can you guys hear that? There's someone out on the window's open, and there's someone out on the street who's like, wow, chicken, wow, wow. After that, I needed something that was kind of really easy to stitch, not difficult at all. Like, no, like, but that I just like felt kind of uncontrollable joy about. And so I worked on Franzi. I show this in every Flosstube. I stitch on it. Like, I don't have any, like, 7 days a month. Two weeks a year. But yeah, I'm just stitching on it a lot, and I just love it so much. So this is Franzi 1870, also by Reflet Soie. Or in my sampler stretch, where I stitched that, I stitched this, and then I stitched another sampler. This I worked on for kind of a while, and I stitched on it while I was at Midsummer Stitch. I did, every time I work on this, I do try to do like 2 motifs-ish. Yeah. But this is what it looks like now. And so I've reached the edge. And so during Midsummer Stitch, I worked on this portion here because I was able to do kind of the outline in advance, and then it was just fill-in, which normally I hate doing fill-in, but during Midsummer Stitch, I was doing other things, and so I didn't want to have to do stitching. I had to like really check the chart a lot for, and check the pattern a lot for, and like do that kind of stuff. And so I worked on this, and then I stitched this little flower down here, which is psychotic. And it looks like that. I love this chart so much. I think I have kind of come to terms with the fact that there's something about Franzi, there's something about these like Biedermeier woolwork samplers that they really scratch a certain part of my brain. And that actually like this kind of stitching is probably the direction that my stitching across the board is going to be moving more and more towards, right? Like as I finish other things, I'm always gonna have a Sandy Orton piece going. I'm always gonna have like little like silly things going. I'll probably always have, at least for a while, I'm always gonna have an animal cracker going. But for a lot of my other samplers, this kind of thing, these like bright, bold colors. And the way that the motifs just kind of are shoved in together. Country girls make do. The thing about this is like you can tell that she had a specific amount of fabric, right? And she needed to fit as absolutely many motifs into it as possible. Sometimes you see these antique samplers where they have this fabric and like it's just like a couple motifs, and it's like that girl is rich in a way that I am not, right? She is rich in a way that I am not. And because if she could use that much fabric to stitch like 3 little flower motifs and a border and 2 alphabets, that's not me, girl, you know? Franzi, a girl who was like, I have this size fabric and I am gonna stitch 1,000 motifs on it. That's like that to me is like how real people were stitching and how I want to be stitching. Not that rich people aren't real, but like, are you people? I mean, I think rich people now think they're not people, right? Like Peter Thiel definitely thinks he's not a person. He thinks he's something above a person or beyond a person. So maybe, you know, they didn't think they're people. But Franzi was definitely a person. And this is what it looks like. It just looks so good. I'll show you this motif. And that's what that looks like. And I think sometimes for some of my pieces, the more I put on them, I feel the same, right? I feel like, oh, okay. like I feel the same way I did about it before I was stitching on it. I'm getting enjoyment from the stitching, but I don't find myself feeling like the actual piece is like improving because of the work I'm doing on it in like a mind kind of way. With Franzi, every motif I put on it, I'm like, it's better than it was before. I'll show you the back. This is the back of the portion I just worked on. And then this is the back of that flower. I just love Franzi so much. And so it was cool to be stitching on this at Midsummer Stitch, to really be showing people like during speed dating it. Yeah. And that's what I worked on. I finished those 2 motifs. And then I was like really feeling sampler crazy, right? Because I had such a good time on ANNO 1817. I had such a good time on Franzi that I was like, I should keep this sampler thing going. Oh, there they are. And so then I worked on Lammegein Pot 1852 by Water and Folk Embroidery. I'll put a photo. There's a photo here. With this one, with Lammegein Pot, I am stitching it on maybe 36 count. Yeah, I'm stitching it on 36 count smoke blue. With my own conversion of 103s and Gutermann silks, and I'm stitching it 1/2. But I'm not doing like a 1-to-1. Oh, my hair looks so bad from the back. I'm not doing like a 1-to-1 conversion where like you replace this color with this color, you don't replace this color with this color. I'm doing it just kind of like as I'm stitching, I'm just pulling out colors and I'm stitching them on this fabric. And this is what my work looks like so far. And so I actually got quite a lot of stitching done on this. Going into it, I really only had kind of the corner here and this. And so I've now stitched all of this and the bit of border from like here down. So I'll zoom in so you can see. I'm having a lot of fun with this. It definitely was bigger than I thought it would be. Which is kind of how I think all of my, like everything I see, I'm always like, oh, that's so, not small, but certainly this one I was like, it's small. This is what the back looks like. And I am stitching this as part of like a series of just small samplers that I am working on. I'm hoping that they can kind of be attached together like flags on a pendant. And it'll look like that. But this one's bigger than the other one I've done, and also probably will be bigger than a lot of the other ones. So I don't know, we'll see what it looks like when I finish more of them and start to attach them together. I'm gonna show you the colors that the conversion is part of. So I'm using mostly 103s and some of the Gutermann silks, which look like also like the 103s, but with a blue spool. Oh, the 103s are from Over Swab. But I do think that they're the same size. I think that they're considered also like because 103 is not like the name of a silk, it's like the size, right? And I think that the Gutermann are the same size, but they do get slightly puffier. And so for me, this like white cream is just like a little bit more dense stitching than the other colors, which I kind of like. But this is what the conversion looks like. Oh, that is how you should do it. I do think there's something quite fun about how the yellow here on the fabric, obviously it's very yellow, but on the spool, it's like an even crazier yellow than it looks on the fabric because it's not like a super dense stitch, and so you get some of that blue that comes through, and it kind of tamps down the more extreme color of that yellow. And that is Lammegein Pot. I'm enjoying this. I'm assuming it's a dog. This little dog and this woman with the buckets of water. Okay, I'm gonna pause and get more water, and my throat is hurting, and then I'm gonna come back and talk about other stuff. I'm back now. I had to get a rug because I'm gonna show you a rug in a little bit. Yeah, so I'll talk about Midsummer Stitch, I'll answer some questions, and then I'm going to talk about a book. And that's kind of, I'm not showing any more stitching, do your thing, whatever. Yeah, so I went to Midsummer Stitch a couple weeks ago. I generally had a good time. I wasn't sure I was going to go. I had not bought tickets until like maybe Friday, and then I had work through most of the day on Saturday, and I was like, oh, in the evening on Saturday, like I'm gonna do it, like I'll log in and go to the tables and the stuff, but a dear friend of mine and a very close friend of Isaac's, like probably his closest friend, and definitely his closest friend who lives here in Pittsburgh, it moved. At this point has moved, but at the time had not moved, and we were just trying to like spend as much time with them as possible, and so we went out to dinner with them on Saturday, and yeah, and I ended up just like not going to Midsummer Stitch at all on Saturday, which to me like was, I'm not saying this like, oh, I wish I had gone, it was the right decision, I'm glad I did it. But then for some reason on Saturday night, there was this like party on Walnut Street, which is the street like a block from my apartment. And I guess something happened where the bathrooms weren't working. And so our neighborhood was like overrun by like underage kids, like going to the bathroom in our alley and like drunk out of their minds, like peeing in our alley. Yeah, it was freaky. Anyway, all I'm saying is like Saturday was, I had work, and then I had like a really great time with a friend, and then we came home planning to sit on the balcony, and like it was not what we thought it would be. And so I did not go to Midsummer Stitch on Saturday, and I was only able to go on Sunday, and I did it basically all day on Sunday. And I had a ton of fun. I got to meet a lot of you, maybe not a lot of you, I definitely got to meet some of you. I got to meet Eli from Thick Threads, who you should all be, and like I definitely got to meet people on like Flosstubers who I like had been watching. And the thing is, like, I don't comment much on YouTube, and so I think maybe it's like a kind of a mystery who I'm watching. And so the people who I like met or got to meet who I'd like been watching I definitely got to meet Eli from Thick Threads. I met the Uplift Stitches many times. Every single time that I went to the speed dating, the cross-stitch speed dating, I got them every time. I think I met them on four, maybe 3 or 4 separate occasions from cross-stitch speed dating, which was really funny. And honestly, like the last time we connected, because you don't know, right? You don't know who's going to be on the other end. I don't even think we talked about anything because I thought it was so funny. I just laughed. I just like laughed the whole time because the whole thing was just there was something so funny about all these people at Midsummer Stitch, and I'm getting uplift stitches over and over again. And so that was really cool. It was really cool to meet them. I think they're as nice as they seem on camera, which is, I'm definitely not as nice as in real life as I seem on camera. And yeah, and so I think it's really cool to see someone who's like as kind and thoughtful as their like edited, filmed, sit in front of a camera version of themselves. I had a really, really wonderful, I have to say, I actually think the highlight for me is I had a really, really wonderful conversation with Manveer, I think, from Mama Bear Stitching. She's a Canadian cross stitcher who hosts like the Library Stitchers. And I think we just had like a really, like, that was one of the ones I was like extending that conversation over and over again. But it was really fun. It was really sweet. But yeah, it was just a really good conversation, and we just kind of talked about how it was kind of being maybe an unconventional floss tuber. And she was so kind and so cool, and she does the fancy ladies and beautiful stitching, and yeah. I mostly did the speed dating when I was at Midsummer Stitch. I went to some of the like Flosstube lives and some of the tables, but I think for me the like Flosstube lives or the talks are just like, I think there wasn't anybody there who look, I'm in the trenches on Flosstube. I think that's like what people maybe are not, no, you shouldn't be surprised. I'm a Flosstuber's Flosstuber. I'm in the trenches of Flosstube. I am watching kind of, the goal is to watch everybody, right? The goal is to watch everything and everybody. And so the thing about the Flosstubers who they hosted at Midsummer Stitch is like, they're not people I dislike, but it's not a style of Flosstube that, I'm just such a negative person. I'm just so critical. But honestly, like, if I wanted to watch my favorite Flosstubers, right, are the ones that I feel like I'm getting a throwback version of YouTube, right? It feels like it's 2012. It feels like it's 2009. It feels like I'm watching just some person kind of talk and share themselves and be themselves and whatever. Those are the ones that I want to watch. The ones who have like touched sort of a almost old-fashioned style of making a YouTube video. And I think that for a lot of the people who they had as part of it are much more in touch with like a new style, a more contemporary style of making a YouTube video, almost like a Mr. Beast light Flosstuber, which is a crazy drag. And I don't mean it that way, right? I don't mean it in like an insulting way. I'm saying like when it comes to a YouTube video, I'm an old-fashioned person, you know? And I think for a lot of people, they're much more contemporary with their interests, which is fair. Certainly some of my interests are incredibly contemporary. Yeah. So, like, I would watch them for a while, and then I didn't, and then whatever. The tables made me really nervous. I am kind of ashamed by how nervous the tables made me. And I think I said that to a couple of people. and they were like, you should go to a table, like they're really cool. And then I clicked on a table, and the people that were like discoursing about stay-at-home moms, right? About like the validity of being a stay-at-home mom. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm out. Like, I'm so happy for all of you that like you enjoy whatever is happening right now. But like, I am so out that I cannot express how out I am right now. And yeah, so then I didn't really go to, I mean, I clicked around at a table every once in a while, but all of that, I'm just like whining and complaining about Midsummer Stitch. And I'm here to tell you I actually had a really good time. I actually had a really great time. And I loved the finished parade. I loved the stuff that people were showing. There was this woman who showed like an elephant that her dad had made that she was very critical of. She was like, my dumb dad. I mean, she didn't say her dumb dad, but the subtext was that like her dad is stupid and he was making her show this elephant. And then it was like the cutest cross stitch. So those are my thoughts. And then there were 2 people who had questions in my last video. Did I miss a letter writing it down? I have the worst handwriting, and so sometimes I can't even read my own handwriting. I'll put it on the screen if I get the username wrong, but Gigi Mill 3929 had a question for me about school and about what I was studying and kind of how it reflects on my stitching and how it relates to my stitching and how those things all kind of connect. And I wish I could give you a much more interesting answer of being like, I'm a, you know, and have like a really shocking kind of thing, right? Like, oh, I don't even know. I don't even know what would be shocking. Like health science, maybe. Or like accounting, right? I think that would actually be really shocking to a lot of people if I was like, yeah, well, I'm in accounting. I'm going to school for accounting. But really, guys, I'm going to school for history. So it's like pretty straightforward how it reflects on my stitching, particularly in regards to like the reproduction samplers that I am working on. And I will say I'm not interested in history in the way of like I think a lot of people are interested in the reproduction, their like research into the reproduction samplers, because they're interested in like finding information out on the girls who made them, or like potential information from the girls who made them, like about the girls who made them and like their families and when they got married and like what school they made it at. And that kind of thing just like isn't very interesting to me, because I think it actually doesn't, it's not useful, right? History to me is so interesting because it can be so extremely useful, both to influence how you and I like understand the world and like our position in it, right? We all sort of perceive the past as like a little bit different. Well, some people perceive the past as very different. And that like perception influences every aspect of our life, right? That like I'm the person I am because I grew up on a farm, right? And it was my family farm, and it had been my family farm since the late 1700s. Like that, those kinds of things, like the things that I learned from my family living on this farm that my family has lived on for a long time is intertwined with the person that I am now. And so the history there has influenced me. And that's like a really obvious example. There's all kinds of much more subtle versions of that. But I did think that this would be a really good opportunity to talk about what I'm doing my capstone on next semester. So to get my degree, I have to do a capstone project, which is an independent study project. And I will be writing mine on, this is where the rug comes in. This is where I'm going to show you a rug. And I'll put some other photos up too, but I am going to be writing mine on Afghan war rugs, which are a type of rug that started appearing on the like art market around the time that the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. And I guess, like, you think about this object in the way that you think about a reproduction sampler, and think about how this is actually a really different way of thinking than how most people think about reproduction samplers. Okay, I'm providing you with a framework for the connection, and now you can do the connection work. These rugs started appearing on the art market at around the time that the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. And they have kind of changed in their appearance. Certainly now they're much less detailed, and they're made with much cheaper materials, like everything in the world is. But yeah, so there are these rugs. They show kind of images now of like extreme violence, guns, bombs. I'm going to show you this one right now that I have that has 9/11 on it, and tanks and bombs and a map of Afghanistan. Yeah, so this is an Afghan rug that I own, which probably is not the color you thought you were about to see when I said I was going to show you a rug from Afghanistan. But so I'm going to be writing my capstone on these rugs. And a lot of I'm not even going to say historians, because most of the people who write about them are not historians. I'm putting it over there, it's hurting my lap. A lot of the people who are writing about them are very much like art market people, so like dealers and people in galleries and people in museums, who at this point are like such a fundamental part of the art market that whatever. And the sort of stories that you and I are going to be told about an Afghan war rug is that they are like authentic representations of Afghani suffering, of the trauma that they've experienced, of the violence that's like inherent in their lives, and that like there is some sort of form of self-expression that this rug provides an Afghan, primarily woman, children too, like let's be real, there's a child labor element happening here. It's like a way for them to express themselves and to express the like experiences they've had in their life, which honestly is probably very similar to what people are saying about samplers. It's probably something I've said about a sampler. The problem is that I don't believe that that's true. I don't believe that that's true at all. And I think that that is a narrative framing for an object that is being made to be sold, right? And specifically now, an object that is being made to be sold to a white American left-leaning consumer. And so at this point now, people in Afghanistan are designing rugs that look like this. Like, Afghanistan is a country, is like a country with major cities, with major urban areas. Like, it is not just like hee-haw and hem and haw, like, oh, my mom's calling me, I'll pick it up later. They're not just like there are people who live in Afghanistan who have lives that's a quality of living far higher than mine. And certainly there are people in Afghanistan who have experienced trauma and who have experienced violence. I'm not going to pretend that. But these are rugs that are being made to be sold, to make money. And that people in Afghanistan know that what white Western consumers perceive Afghanistan as being is this sort of war-torn hovel, and are present and like trashy, like, and so the colors are going to be incredibly bright and kind of childish and trashy, right? The images are extreme in their bluntness and in their straightforwardness. The words are misspelled. A lot of times there are words in English that are misspelled. On the one I have, missile is misspelled. It's spelled M-E-S-I-A-I-L, right? And the problem is that at least this is my belief, and this is what I'm going to be writing about and what I'm going to be researching, is that I believe that actually they are not an authentic representation of Afghanistan, anything, and are instead a representation of what an Afghan person perceives Americans to want from, or to see Afghanistan as being. That there is like a self-reflective mirror involved in the making of this rug. It's also complicated because like there's some copyright issues at play where there's a guy in Brooklyn who somehow owns the copyright to some of the images on Afghan war rugs. And so that means that if I like went to a woman in Afghanistan, and so the thing about a copyright is you are claiming that you have actually designed, so this like white American dude is claiming that he has actually designed the motifs on some of these rugs, while also in his marketing material is claiming that they're authentic representations of Afghan suffering. And so basically the whole argument is that the middlemen, the people between the Afghan women, if they're even in Afghanistan, it seems like a lot of them are made in Bangladesh and a lot of them are made by small children. But the narrative is that they're Afghan women, is that the people who are like a bridge between Afghan women and people buying these rugs, they are lying to you. And they are lying to you because they think they can get more money out of it. And yeah, so that's what I'm going to be writing about. I think that probably also tells you some ideas about how I feel about things like what M. Finkel and Daughter, right? Or Whitney Antiques. Yeah. And also, I guess, how I feel about anyone who's associated too heavily with them. I'm also going to answer a question from Sleepy Goblin Crafts. Oh my god, Sleepy Goblin Crabs. Sleepy Goblin Crafts. I have been watching Evis since their first Flosstube video, and so love ya. But they were kind of asking about my feeling about like the hot releases, and because I had kind of talked about it in my last video about like, oh, I, struggle when you kind of are interested in a piece and then everybody starts and then you're kind of sick of it. And I do agree that I do agree with them that I found the like JetX Stitch North pink, like neon pink start to be kind of, it was kind of crazy to watch like so many people start this one piece. Like, I don't think I've ever seen it. I mean, you see it with like some of the sals, right? You'll see it with like the modern folk embroidery sals or things like that, where it is just kind of like, oh, like it's releasing at the same time. People like this designer. And so they kind of start it when it comes out because of the sal and whatever. And like the JetX Stitch one did feel kind of different for me. And I guess I'll say like, and they were like, oh, do you still start them? Like, I think I go through sort of I don't think that I can start something like 3 months after everybody else starts it. Particularly the same piece stitched the same way. I think I would just be like, no. Like, at this point, like, in August of 2025, like, I'm not buying a Labubu, right? And I'm not stitching the JetX Stitch pink piece, right? I'm not stitching that Animal Cracker Frog right now. But I have been thinking about Fruits of Plenty, which I feel like is sort of the one. Honestly, like the ultra trendy final boss of things that like every single person you know has stitched or at least tried to stitch or is currently stitching. And I think I saw it and I think people were stitching it and I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, it's nice and I want to stitch it, and then everybody started and I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But I think as time went on and I watched other people stitch it, I was kind of like, okay, now I can see how other people have done with it, right? I've seen the changes people have made. I now kind of understand what I think works and what I think doesn't work and what I like and what I don't like. And so in some ways, like, I think my Fruits of Plenty is even stronger. The like work I'm doing on my Fruits of Plenty and the choices that I made in terms of doing that super monochromatic look is even stronger because I honestly, you all tested it for me. Right? Like I didn't have to try all the colors, I didn't have to pull out. I got to watch everybody try it a whole bunch of ways and I got to say like, I want to do it this way. And I am. Although I don't think I've seen a lot of people do the Jetic stitch on with much of a color conversion. I don't know. Yeah, it's a complicated thing because it's just complicated to think about starting stuff that people have done and how do I see, like, do I see myself as being just like them? Do I want to be just like them? I think I'm much more comfortable kind of just doing my own thing for my work and kind of just picking my own colors and rolling with it. I know some people don't feel very confident about conversions or things like that. And so really feel like, but I also know some people find it exhausting, right? That you have to make choices and you aren't comfortable like just kind of winging it. Yeah, and so it's like a complicated thing. I don't really have a solution, and I don't really have like a coherent answer for that one. But yeah, I just think if you like a chart, yeah, I think if you like a chart, I'll hold off on doing it. If you like a chart that you see starting to blow up, I actually would recommend holding off on stitching it. Because then you get to see what everyone else does. And then you can choose, right? And you don't have to fly quite as blind as you would if you were like really at the forefront of some of the stitching. Yeah, I think that's what I have to say. And then I'm going to talk about one book and then I'm going to go. Because honestly, I've been going for like an hour and a half at this point, and I'm really starting to feel it. I was going to talk about this in my last Flosstube video, and I didn't because I also felt like I was running out of time, but at this point, like the video's long now, I don't care. But maybe a couple weeks ago, I finished Can Jokes Bring Down Governments by Metahaven, and they're based in Amsterdam. Book was kind of about memes and jokes. I mean, it was written in like 2012, so even like a meme wasn't what a meme is now. And I enjoyed it. Ultimately, my feeling is like with this, I wish that I had read it in 2013. I wish that I'd read it in 2014. Is that I felt like there was there was like a really clear time in my life where I felt that the internet could be like emancipatory and that there was like an ability to create like new identities and new cultures and new everything, right? And that there was room for like real kind of radical activism that was capable of happening on the internet. And I feel much less so now. And so I really wish that I had read it 10 years ago, because I think it would have, I have become too cynical, and I wish that I had read it at a time in my life when I was much less cynical, because I think that I would have gotten quite a lot more out of it than I do now. And so I guess the reason I want to talk about it is because I feel like there probably are people watching this who feel like the internet has a possibility to be a truly radical and to actually create like positive change in the world. And you should read it. That is kind of all I have to say in this video. That has been quite long. Thank you all so much for watching. I can't believe I've made 10 videos. I feel so thankful to everyone who watches my videos, and thankful to everyone who comments and who has such interesting things to say. I also want to say shout out to Cinematic Stitches, because at Midsummer Stitch, they were like, when I matched with them on stitching speed dating, I just felt so validated by talking to them. Yeah, sometimes I forget. I mean, the thing is, I don't get that many views anymore, maybe like 500, which I guess is still a lot of views for someone rambling on about cross stitch for an hour and a half. But it's easy to forget that kind of anybody watches these videos. And so it was really cool to see someone not only be like, I watch your videos, but be like, I love your videos, right? Like a face moving, right? A comment is one thing. A comment is really cool, and it's cool that you guys comment, but like, it's much more real when you can see the person's face move in such a way and be like, I love your videos. So I just want to say thank you so much to them. It was really, really nice to meet you and really cool. And that's all.